We start out sandblasting and painting parts and finish off 3D printing a front grille. So far been brushed up. The brush can't get into that pitted rust. I'm going to see how the sandblaster goes on it. That's the outside. If anything, it looked better inside the cabinet than when you pull it out. This is the pitted rust area. I think I will run a bit of acid over it as well now. So that front bash plate's had a light coat of phosphoric acid. Front bar has been sitting here all day with a bit of acid on it. I got more done on this back side. These are a couple of front plastic stays that I've just had in the sandblaster. They clean up pretty well. These ones are not going to need an acid dip. I think I've got all of the surface and left no rust behind. Pretty good. I'll get a bit of black paint on them. That's those two pieces with a bit of a spray. The satin surface is brilliant for taking the paint. Leaves a nice finish. Don't know that you can see it that well in this light, but it's going to be perfect. That's the storage box, 1990 guard, which I've got sitting on top of Abigail. They're the painted hinges, an original closing clip, and some new screws I found, flanged panhead screws, which were perfect for the job. I needed to cut them a bit shorter. They were from a data rack. These 1990 plastics were the worst of the lot, and my original repairs attempts to them made them worse again. They're missing, that's a piece of red bucket grafted in on this side. All of these holes is where I've removed cable ties that stitched it together. There's now staples on the back which are a little bit neater. The other side is probably more of an abortion in some ways. Well, in a lot of ways. You can see the large piece of bucket. These pieces were missing completely when I got this quad bike, so I needed to do something to fill the gaps. I mucked around on the outside surface of these and probably made more of a mess. Again, I've removed a series of cable ties that were stitching that crack together. I've now got staples on the back, which I think looks better. There was a largish hole here, which I've filled with a round piece of bucket and mucked around with the surface. It was already messed up in this area. I tried to improve it a little bit, but it needs a new hole drilled through there where it connects to the rack. Overall, look, it covers the rear of the bike. When there's a rack on it, it disguises the mess a little bit. I've got a nice straight rack for it. So that's the front bumper of Abigail, painted up, looking good. That's the bash plate, the heavily corroded back of it. The paint sucks up into it a little bit because it etches the surface quite a lot. probably not as glossy. It's a bit glossy in that area, a bit blotchy in others where there's been rust. That's the tow bar that I've shown before. I fitted an old 88 bumper on the front of Abigail temporarily so that I could lift at a lifting point, but it'll come off and be swapped with the painted one. This is a new grill for the front plastics on my Koorlong restoration. I'm printing it, finished surface will be on top. So a lot of this zigzaggy material here is just support material. These hoops are the only part that will be used from what you see so far. It's still got 6 hours to print and it's been printing for 5 hours. It's quite a complex print in that it didn't quite fit on the bed of the printer, so I had to rotate it, and even then it trimmed a little bit off the adhesion brim, both here and down in that corner, but at least it got started. So that's close to maximum size my print bed can handle. Chuffing away so far, it looks like a good print. I had a false start. This is my template that I cut and held up behind where the grill was going to go. This here is a print that didn't complete. It was just wafer thin still. I was trying to print it down this way, whereas this new one is up that way and it's got a 8mm high spigot, or those tubes that you saw will go through the front of the bike to locate it. This was going to print this way and those tubes were going to be built up on the top. This used a lot less filament if it had worked, but it failed and it wasn't going to be right anyway because there was unsupported material down along this front edge which was hanging off it. So I've got a bit of a coaster there to play around with. I'll take it out to the bike just to check that the current design was going to work. To get this design into the CAD, I took a photograph of it and then scaled that photograph and brought it in as a canvas, and hopefully it's about the right size. The photograph for this piece of plastic was taken with the plastic laying on the floor from about waist height to avoid distortion from the phone. The high-res image from the phone was seriously cropped to create this picture. This is the opening. I've cleaned it up a little bit around the edges to make the template. I held the template up on the inside and traced around with a biro to put some lines on there. I'm guessing a little bit as to what the vents should be like. But, my first print, which was aborted, was going to look something like that. Yeah, this was falling apart, so hopefully the new one, which is being printed upside down, produce a nicer front finish. It's the first of prototypes for this. The surface isn't flat as well. I'm hoping the 3D print will conform to the shape a little bit. That's now sort of in place. Look, the vent in the front, it's probably not that different to what the original was. There's we'll see when the thing's printed. This piece is about to finish. The actual 10 hours, 56 minutes, almost 11 hours. Yeah, maybe that's 6 minutes. So the actual print, it's probably on its final layer. There's a whole heap of support material. You see all that corrugated material around the edges. That's holding the front panel up 8mm off the bed there. All of that breaks away, and just the grill on the top, some locating vents go through the existing plastic on the bike to hold it on. So I'll just let that finish. I've got this piece of front plastic sitting up on my bench. I've got to stand back a distance for you to get an appreciation of how it's set up. It's actually screwed through a couple of screws into that block of wood in the vise through the bottom of the battery compartment with a couple of washers on it so that it's sitting there. Well, this part of it at least was relatively firm. This hole here was cut by somebody butchering the bike before I got it to get access to the starter solenoid and the neutral relay. A piece about that wide is missing from there, been cut out. The whole of the grill at the top has been cut out so that somebody can get to the voltage regulator, which sits in this sort of location. What I'm doing is printing a new grill for this and a battery cover to go in here. The grill's about to come off the press. The battery, I'm calling it the battery compartment rear wall piece, which only comes up to about there, is just a rectangular piece with some flanges on it so that it fits neatly in that hole. I had to trim that hole up so that it was nice and square, flat bottom and square sides, so that I had something to work with. The 3D printed piece of plastic, I could have probably just welded using staples a rectangle flush in there, but decided I would 3D print a piece of plastic. The grey plastic I've got is closer to this colour. I've been referring to this colour as green all along, and others tell me it's grey, so I'm either colourblind or they are. This is the grill 3D print that's just come off the machine. The material that's hanging on the edge of it that's flaking away is part of the brim, as distinct from the support structure. It helps with adhesion of the unit to the bed of the printer, and there's only one squirt of filament wide. It breaks away very easily. Then you've got this square pattern here through the centre of these, which is support material, and the edge of that hexagon type layout, this corrugated section here is all support material, because the main part of this grill, there's 8mm of support material and then 3mm of grill on top of that, and there's a couple of sections that are outlined there that comes through the 8mm depth, which jacks that whole grill up, and they will be used to locate the grill through the existing holes. Now that's what on the Cura slicer they call normal support material. This here is an example of tree style support, which rather than being squares, it's made up of a whole lot of little circles and branches of a tree. Now that's very effective when you've got a bit of height needing to be supported, because you don't have just solid support material on the lower side. As it gets taller, the branches of the tree get smaller, right through to that shape on the top there is what breaks away. These were used when I was making my soldering station. So I'm now going to break some pieces of this support material away. Support material is designed to come away very easily. You can see there's 3 pieces here, and there's a piece I've broken away. It came away as one piece. It's sort of a corrugated structure, and when it broke out, it just left the front of the grill piece remaining. So the rest of those pieces across, there's 8 of them in total, will come out very easily, and then there's a big ring of support material around the rest of it. So I've got all 8 pieces off the back of the grill vanes, and then I ran just a small screwdriver around the crack on these vent pieces. The support material isn't attached very solidly, and eventually that whole support piece of support material came away as one piece. Came off relatively easy, leaving a very clean print underneath. You can see this grill is only 3mm thick, but it's got those 8mm high flanges on the rear which slot through what remains of the existing holes. The whole centre part is missing on my Koorlong restoration, so this one is a whole grill. On another bike I've just got vanes missing off one side, and I was thinking of printing 2 separate inserts for it, leaving the red material as it is down the centre and around the outside. I have got the option with this print to chop the whole lot out. I'll go and see what it looks like and see whether it fits now. I've got this piece of plastic set up to make this wall, and I cut this hole nice and square in this setup. I'll leave it like this until the piece is made for this hole. It's on the printer at the moment. This is the grill that's come off literally 5 minutes ago, and I've got to hold it up around the side with my hand around the side there, but it doesn't sit flat across the front there, so it'll need to have a little bit of a buckle, a bow in it to sit, but those penetrations are coming through. If I sit it in from this side, for example, it should just about go in that way as well. The effective tube parts here on it are going through those holes, no problem, there's clearance. And the larger flange on there should cover any imperfections, because to get a pattern of that hole is a non-precise operation. Bit of guesswork involved to bring a canvas into Fusion 360 and trace it. I think I've done all right. I think that grill sort of looks okay too, unless you had a real one next to it. You wouldn't pick the differences too much. The battery rear wall is just finished printing. I'll leave the fit up of it till next time. Between your shed and your study, get out and have some fun.